As His Excellency Thabo Mbeki said, the 2023 general election is the 7th successive general election in Nigeria since the restoration of democracy in 1999. This is the longest period we had electoral democracy. We have a voter population of 93 million. And 93 million means that we have 16.7 million more voters than the other 14 countries in West Africa put together. So each time Nigerians go to the polls, it's like the whole of West Africa and beyond voting. Such is the sheer size of elections in Nigeria. We have benefited from your previous election observation reports. So much of the innovations introduced over time has benefited from your observation report. So we don't take your observations lightly. Your recommendations that require administrative action by the Commission, we just went ahead and implemented those recommendations. Those requiring legislation or amendment, particularly of the subsidiary legislation, the Electoral Act, we engaged with the National Assembly to provide the necessary legislation. That require amendment to the grand norm, the Constitution, we also liaised with the National Assembly to do so. And some that require subsidiary legislation in addition to the Electoral Act, we also came in handy by way of regulations and guidelines. So the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and the regulations and guidelines constitute the electoral legal framework to govern the conduct of elections. Election is a process essentially governed by law. So once again, on behalf of the Commission, I would like to thank you for the recommendations made in previous elections. And we look forward to the recommendations that we are going to come up with after your observation of this election. It is these recommendations that have kept us going in terms of the review and reform and improvement of the electoral process. We are aware of the responsibilities that lie on our shoulders, but we cannot do it alone. Our work is clearly cut out, and there are others that have responsibilities, the security agencies, the political parties, and others, but we have been in constant touch with them. As a commission, we have consistently engaged with the stakeholders. Every 3 months, we meet with the stakeholders, meaning political parties, civil society organizations, the media, and the security agencies. And we meet every quarter, that's every 3 months, whether there is any matter to discuss or not. But we can meet as many times in the year as possible depending on the issues. And we have benefited immensely from our interactions with the stakeholders. We are committed to a free and fair process. I want to assure you that INEC is not a political party. We don't have a candidate in the election. The choice of who becomes president or whatever in the forthcoming general election is entirely in the hands of citizens. We are committed to free, fair, credible, inclusive, and verifiable elections. We released the timetable for the 2023 general elections over a year ago, and we identified 14 activities. And I'm glad to say we have so far implemented 12 of the 14 activities on schedule. Not one has been postponed for any reason. There are only 2 activities outstanding. The last day of campaign, which by law is supposed to be 48 hours to the date of the election, which is going to happen at midnight on Thursday this week. And then the last activity is the election day itself. The election will be held in 2 phases. On February the 25th, that is this week on Saturday, we'll hold the national elections, meaning the Presidential and National Assembly. And we have 2 chambers of the National Assembly, the Senate and the House of Representatives. Then 2 weeks later, we'll hold the state elections, governorship election in 28 out of the nation's 36 states, and then election of members of the State Assembly. And we have 993 constituencies. So the election in Nigeria is huge. We understand, as I said, the responsibilities that lie on our shoulders. We also understand the benefit of credible elections, not only to the peace and good governance of our country, but the ripple effect, positive effect on our sub-region and beyond. And I want to assure you that we'll never let Nigerians down, we'll never let the international community down. We are willing to discuss some of the issues you may wish to raise, but let me once again, on behalf of the Commission, welcome the Commonwealth team very much to the Independent National Electoral Commission as our guests. And good to see you, Your Excellency, the former President of South Africa. Thank you very much.
Honorable Chairperson of INEC, Professor Yakubu, and distinguished commissioners. Thank you very much indeed for receiving us. We've got here, the Chairperson, the full complement of the observer delegation, observer group of the Commonwealth. We were saying this morning to the media, Mr. Chairman, that this is the seventh, these are the seventh elections of Nigeria that we're observing. Of course, I don't need to say that in terms of the Commonwealth, and more than the Commonwealth. Nigeria is a very important country. Its future impacts on itself, but it impacts on the continent as a whole. So it's always very, very important that as the Commonwealth we should come to be with you as you hold these important elections and to observe, Mr. Chairman, to observe the elections. But of course, we come very hopeful and very confident that we will have successful elections, peaceful elections, inclusive elections, and at the end, hopefully, there should be no complaint, hopefully. In good measure, that depends on yourself, Chairperson, and the honorable members of INEC, and the many, many other people around the country who constitute your team, a very sizable team of people. So we've come here essentially, therefore, Chairperson, to listen, to understand as much as we can your own views in terms of the preparations for the elections and anything and everything else concerning the elections that falls within the remit of the INEC. As you would understand, Mr. Chairman, of course, that understanding on our part as observers is important because in the end, we will make a statement about the elections, but even more important, I think, make recommendations about whatever we think in terms about these elections. Therefore, as comprehensive and accurate a picture as possible about the elections becomes important. And INEC, being a central player in that process, is very, very critical that we should listen very carefully to what INEC says about the elections and all other matters related to that, as I said, all matters that would fall within the remit of the INEC. So that we must take all of those on board as we observe and as we comment and as we recommend at the end of all of this. But I must say thanks a lot, Mr. Chairman, for receiving us. We're not very far away from Election Day, and I would imagine everybody is very, very busy wanting to talk to you about one matter or the other, and you would also very busy from here making sure that the machinery throughout the Federation is properly in place. But thank you very much indeed for receiving us. The Chairperson reassured us that he will, at the end of all of the presentation, he'll give us 5 minutes to ask questions. And I think I said 5 minutes is enough. Yeah. But anyway, we'll say, no, they are very ready to hear from us whatever it is what you might say. But for now, Mr. Chairman, thanks a lot. Thanks indeed for